My name is Craig Picken. I'm an executive recruiter. More than a decade ago, I started my practice for one purpose: to use my experience as a former military aviator, business jet sales executive, and P&L leader to help aviation and aerospace companies and their executives be fast, adaptable, and strategic. I do these podcasts to inspire and inform, but more importantly, they are a focused platform to help business leaders grow. Welcome to the Aerospace Executive Podcast. Welcome back to the Aerospace Executive Podcast. We're going to do something a little different today. I've got my good friend, Matt Johnson. Matt is a podcaster as well. He's got the Micro Famous podcast. He works with a wide variety of clients, ranging from some of the most well-known business coaches, some entrepreneurs in various industries, and he produces my podcast as well. So we decided to come on today and talk about the world online as it changes. So, Matt, thanks for coming on.
I am always excited to be with you because we have fun conversations, and this is going to be even more fun than usual because, this is really my wheelhouse. Like, I've been working in the virtual world for 5 years. I've had basically an entirely virtual team for most of my business career. And I've been in the shoes of someone trying to prove themselves and move up the ranks of a company where the CEO lived 1,000 miles away. I couldn't be in the same room with the person I was trying to impress. So yeah, it's just, I think the rest of the world, unfortunately, is getting thrown into the same working conditions that I've been dealing with for the last 5 years. So we're going to talk about the implications, but let's start with, you and I were chatting before I jumped on, before we hit record, about just the college experience, because we're both talking to a lot of college age folks. What are you seeing?
Yeah, well, so I've got my twins are sophomores in college now, and one goes to the University of North Carolina. It's a very competitive school to get into. It's rated one of the better top 10 state universities in the country, and all of a sudden now they're bringing everything online. And basically, they've made it so onerous to go to class this year because of COVID. And they want to put everything online. And the one thing you look at as things go, you think about the college experience and the difference between the University of North Carolina or Harvard and an online school like the University of Phoenix. All of a sudden, the differentiators get very, very small if you're looking at stuff online. If you're just learning stuff online with no face-to-face collaboration or no ability to, share your own brain power or get the brain power with other students, what separates a very competitive university from, basically one for the masses? Mm-hmm. And I think that a lot of businesses, as they're going that direction, the question is going to be, how do we differentiate ourselves in an online world? Mm-hmm. How do people differentiate themselves in an online world? Everybody's loving the work from home. I think we're about 6 months into this now, the work from home thing with COVID. But once again, it's got a little bit of its pluses and minuses. I think the struggle that a lot of people are going to have is, how do I differentiate myself, or how do I understand as a leader how to lead when I'm doing everything with Slack and Zoom and, Teams, email, etc. It's a whole new
Which
day.
is interesting. Yeah, because when you and I chatted about this a few days ago, I thought here's what I thought you were about to say, that now is the best time in the world to be an ambitious person. And then you basically said the opposite, which is that now is the hardest time to show that you're a leader to a company, whether you're inside or whether you're coming in from the outside as a candidate. And that really threw me for a loop. Right. So elaborate a little bit. I want just tell me a little bit about what I might not know about the challenges that your candidates are facing when they're going into this interview situation, the way things are structured right now.
Well, look, I think it's really hard. You think about, if you're interviewing with a company, you walk into the company and you look a little left and you look a little right and you look at their offices and you look at the people who are there and you get a great idea of what the culture looks like just from showing up? Are people in jeans and boots and polo shirts? Are they in suit and tie? Is it a little bit more formal? Is it a little bit less informal? And ultimately, the culture is what makes or breaks a lot of people. So I think, straight up, straight off the bat, how does this person fit into our culture, or how do I fit into their culture as a person looking to go to work for a company? Yeah. If we're all going online, how does company culture get defined, or does it get recognized? Yeah. I think
I agree.
That's just one thing to think about. It's neither good nor bad.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something different to think about.
Yeah, I think the research process, because in terms of showing leadership, that's one of the things that a candidate could do to show leadership. So did they go to Glassdoor and read every review they can get their hands on from people that actually work inside the company? Did they make an effort to connect with people inside and ask them a little bit about what the culture is, that they show up knowing what the culture is, rather than going, oh, I won't know what the culture is until I have that first meeting. Right. So there's all kinds of to me, there's so many interesting things that people can do, that if you are ambitious and you are thinking about that and you realize that that is a problem, there are ways to solve that problem. They take a little bit of initiative,
Yep.
and it may be a different way of researching it than it would have been 20 years ago before all these tools existed. But those tools, the tools have just changed. Rather than picking up the phone and tracking someone down inside a company, having a phone conversation, you may send them a message on LinkedIn and get the same information you need on the culture.
Yep. But ultimately, it's, a lot of people, back in, 6 months, a year ago, you're going for an interview and it's like, hey, look, I'll show up, I'll dress up, I'll show up, I'll look around, I'll check it out, and I'll get a good idea the minute I get there, whether or not this is a place I even want to be.
Mm-hmm.
That's a long putt now. That's, that's a long putt,
Mm-hmm.
just walking into, just walking into somebody's facility. Is this place the most beautiful office building in the world, or is it a dump? That said a lot about a company. You don't have that privilege. You don't have that privilege right now.
Reminds me of walking into the marketing agency I worked at years and years ago, and walking in and seeing like sagging tiles. Like my desk was a Sam's Club fold out desk with a brand new computer, because it was just, it was a startup.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's the culture is everything. And it kind of dictates who you attract and whether you want to be a part of that culture.
Yeah, no, look, there was a business I used to call on in Los Angeles, and they were in the middle of it was a pretty rough neighborhood, but they bought this old building, and it was beautiful. Like, hey, look, we know the neighborhood's a little rough, but they just took this old building and knocked it out of the park. And then you saw what they were wearing, and you're like, these guys have some vibe to them. It's a good vibe. I've seen other companies where you walk into an old building and it's exactly what you'd expect. It's an old building in a crappy neighborhood. You're going, oh man, is this really where I want to show up to work every day?
Yeah.
That's a hard thing to figure out when you're online all the time, is, what's the, who are the people I'm working with? Mm-hmm. So, I think of a lot of the other challenges. I'm kind of chuckling. I don't want to get into the political room, but I'm sort of chuckling about, school. Do kids go back to school, mm-hmm. or does it go online?
Yeah.
And I think about the teachers. Look, I can understand their position. Like, we don't want to get sick either.
Right.
But on the flip side, they're taking such a hard stance. I wonder how many school boards are saying, maybe we could replace these people with a YouTube channel.
Oh, man.
And you talk about standardized teaching, where we put
mm-hmm.
20 kids in a class, or we put 20 kids in a room or whatever, and we just pipe in a YouTube channel and teach them how to do long division, mm-hmm. Third grade long division via YouTube channel. And hey, maybe we put a minimum wage or $15 an hour teacher's helper in there to, mm-hmm. Help them out.
Yep.
Whoa, I'm not sure that.
I was going to say, if they're not careful, those kind of alternative models are going to come up out of necessity and not out of choice.
Yeah, somebody's going to think about that. And I think, I just think about people, and I go, hey, you're working virtual. How do you make yourself stand out? There's challenges to it. How do you make yourself stand out?
Hmm.
I know you've worked virtual for a long time. You worked for an ad agency, and you were 1,000 miles away from your boss,
Hmm.
and you did really well.
Yeah.
How does somebody break out at Boeing or AT&T or a big company when they're not really interacting personally
Well,
with their colleagues?
because the choice of like not being able to interact in person, that may be taken away from us, but you can still interact more. You can still grab the attention of the person in charge uh, by offering to do things. Essentially, it's solving problems. So when you're in company meetings and you see that there's a problem solved that maybe outside of your area, maybe outside of your job responsibility, I mean, what executive doesn't want somebody underneath them coming up and saying, "Hey, I think I have a solution, like a solution to this problem. Hey, I
Mhm.
don't know if this will work, but I think this is something that we could try." Now, you may look at that solution and go, "Meh, we've tried something like that before, but I appreciate the initiative." Right? So one of the things that I've really asked myself over the years of working virtually is, how does someone demonstrate that they are proactive? And it is a hard thing to do out of the blue if you don't know what it looks like. But once you see it, once people see it demonstrated, and once they see it rewarded in the culture, then other people get a sense of what proactive really means. And it's stepping out and looking for ways to solve problems that are not just within your ordinary job description. And if you do that, you're going to catch the attention of people above you. If you're a candidate for a job and you come in and you have an opinion on what their biggest challenges are, you may not have all the answers, but if you can come in as a candidate and you can articulate the challenge they face in a better way, or give them a different spin or a different paradigm or perspective on the challenge they face, that's going to set you apart. So like if I were going into the workforce today and I wanted to get a job at a big company, I would absolutely network my way in first, or I
Mhm.
would I would reach out to somebody like you first and start building relationships with people like you that already have relationships with the C-suite at the companies I want to work for. But then I would go deep on what is their biggest challenge right now, and that would be different at a division level or a business unit level for each company, right? So you got one
Mhm.
big overarching challenge for the company, but then you've got different business units have their own. But yeah, I would research that, and I would read everything I can get my hands on as far as the strategy and the different approaches that they can take, so that I had something to say, because it's not just about me. Like
Mhm.
I think that's the biggest mistake candidates make, is just trying to make themselves look better. Like, put
Right.
the focus back on the company that you want to work for and show them how you can help them solve that biggest challenge. So
Mhm.
I think when you take that approach, that's going to set you apart, because just most people coming out of college, and maybe even 10 years out of college, they just don't know to do that. They don't know what proactive actually looks like.
Right. No, and you're absolutely right. And proactive. Hey, don't bring me problems. Bring me solutions to problems.
Hmm.
Hey, look, here's the problem. Here's the solution. Here's the problem as I see it. Here's a couple of good ideas
Hmm.
to fix it. Is much more welcome, and you can do that. Either in person. You can do it. Online. You can do it video. You can do it. There's 100 ways to do it.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
think
look at.
that
I mean, you're a little bit of a football fan, enough to know. Like, do you remember how the Dallas Cowboys hired Mike McCarthy out of Green Bay? That just went down over the summer. Did you hear anything about the
yeah,
process?
no, I did not hear about the process.
Yeah, so they don't know each other. Like, Jerry Jones didn't know McCarthy other than him getting beat by the Packers in his own stadium a couple of
Mhm.
times, right? But they brought him in for an interview, shows up, but what he had was a plan. So
Right.
he'd spent the last year basically studying the NFL in his off year after he got let go from the Packers, and he just spent all year researching the industry, talking to everybody he could, and he came in with a game plan. So
Right.
look, if I got a hold of your team, here's what I would do. Here's the players I would keep. Here's the ones I would let go. Here's my plan. Here's my 5-year plan. Like, he just came in with all, like, a load of stuff, like a bam, like put a
Mhm.
folder down on the desk and said, like, this is my plan. And I'm sure Jerry Jones didn't agree with all of it, but it
Mhm.
was the fact that that level of research
You have to
went
plan.
into it. Yes. That's what instilled that trust. And he's like, all right, you're my guy. We'll figure out the rest out later, but you're my guy.
You're
And I
my
think
guy.
that can be
Right.
done by anybody.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's an executive I'm working with, and there's a great background there. And you talk to as in this day and age where everybody's trying to build their brand, and I think about like guys like Gary V or these people who just get outrageous and they're getting on YouTube. Gary V's doing his thing, and I think about these people get on YouTube and they're dropping F bombs everywhere, and they're just going out and they're thinking, hey, look, I'll just be outrageous. I'm going to be the new version of Howard Stern, and then I think of this person, and everybody I know says, hey, here's the deal: complete wallflower, relatively quiet, just kind of comes in, looks around, doesn't say a whole lot. But damn, when they get a hold of a project, it just gets done. And they take on the hardest things, and they take on the hardest, challenges, and they take on the hardest tasks. And they take the stuff that's really broken and they fix it beyond everybody's wildest dreams. And you think about, that's a brand too.
Yeah.
I'm just the quiet person who comes in, sits in my corner, and gets stuff done. And there's nothing wrong with that brand. In fact, I think people appreciate, people love that brand too. But in a day where, it's like, hey, look, how do I make myself stand out? And maybe people are even feeling more pressure as we go, as we sort of go our own separate corners.
Yeah.
Maybe they're feeling more pressure to stand out. But I think at the end of the day, it's results speak volumes a whole lot more than words. So
I would agree, and I think there's a specific personality type driven, an engineering analytical mindset. They enjoy problem solving, and but they're not the guys that come in, jingling change in their pocket and shake everyone's hand in the room and like big boisterous, whatever. They're like, we have to recognize that we do have a personality, and that personality can be amplified by the brand that we create for ourselves. Right. So a brand is a way of like packaging ourselves, whether that's as a candidate, and of course it applies at the company level, but especially for candidates. Like, I don't know that I'd worry so much about this if I were in my 20s, but if I'm in my 30s and I want to go up the executive ladder, like I want to be this guy or that gal. I want people to know what I stand for and what that brand is. Right. Yeah. So like, I'd want to take my personality and amplify it and drop the other stuff out of my brand that doesn't need to be there, so that people can go, oh, Matt's the guy that he doesn't say a lot, but he just gets stuff done. Or Matt's the guy that can open up a new territory and just crush it. Right. Like whatever your brand is, like whatever, like look in the successes of what you've done in the past. And I think that's what, I think we're all going to have to get much better at that, because we're having to be more mobile from company to company and division to division. If you're in that world, it's getting a lot closer now to the entrepreneurial world where I've run in, where you absolutely have to have a personal brand. Otherwise you have no business. Well, now that's that mentality and that reality is starting to bleed into other aspects of the economy, where if you're a candidate and I can't brand you, I can't exactly pin down what type of person and personality and type of executive you are, I'm going to have trouble pitching you. Like, and you're going to have trouble getting pitched and getting into that interview. So I think the more that we become aware of that, and it's a matter of taking the things that we're good at, enhancing our best attributes, and then not mentioning any of the other stuff. Like really zeroing in on the strengths and just completely de-emphasizing the weaknesses, so that we become known for one thing.
Yeah. And I think too, the one thing that's really going to need to improve as we continue down this work from home thing, communication has got to be your ability to communicate yourself, your ideas, your strengths, and ability to take projects on and deliver results. It's just got to be, it's more essential. The privilege of the world is you can work from home in your pajamas and your flip-flops if you want to. Maybe you don't have to commute into downtown New York City or wherever your 30-minute commute. That's the upside. the challenge is now you've got to be able to figure out how to communicate your abilities to get stuff done better in order to create your own value.
Yeah, 100% agreed.
So,
I think one of the best books I read about that is Extreme Ownership. Still, even from the communication angle, there's a lot of books about communication, but from a leadership perspective and getting things done, the examples that they gave were some of the best I've ever seen in terms of just how do you communicate so that other people understand the vision and the mission and actually get things done and come along with you on the ride. So yeah, that's where I would turn to. That's a great resource.
I love that. I love that book because basically what it is, it's a really good way to break it down and say, hey, the person responsible for today is the person looking in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
And I own it. I own it from beginning to end. And if I'm roadblocked, I own the process of getting unroadblocked.
Mm-hmm.
Or
exactly.
taking a different path.
Yep.
And that's the I love that book. That was good. I love that book. So.
Yep, me too. Yep, I reread that continuously. It's like on a loop in my life. Like every few months, just go back and reread several chapters because it's a good refresher. All right, so I know we've got limited time together today. So I want to put it back on you. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Give me a call, 910-509-7129. Craig at northstaresg.com. And tune in to the Aerospace Executive Podcast.com. Or the Aerospace Executive Podcast, I should say. It comes out on it comes out on iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher,
Spotify, all the usual places.
Spotify. Yep. I put it up on LinkedIn and my website, northstaresg.com.
That's right. All right, man. Appreciate you having me on. Thanks so much.
I hope you enjoyed the latest edition of the Aerospace Executive Podcast. You can reach out to me directly, Craig at northstaresg.com, or check us out at www.northstaresg.com. You can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, or on YouTube. Just do a search for Aerospace Executive Podcast. Thanks again. I'm Craig Pittman.